Right now, dealerships across the United States are counting on the fact that you don't know the difference between a genuinely great SUV and one that just looks impressive in a commercial. And the scary part is, the most advertised vehicles on the market are often the ones you should be running away from the fastest. We're talking about bloated price tags, mediocre reliability records, watered-down powertrains dressed up with premium trim names, and infotainment systems that feel like they were designed by a committee that's never actually driven a car. The SUV segment in 2026 is enormous. There were over 50 different models competing for your attention, your trade-in, and your monthly budget. But here's the truth that nobody in a showroom is going to tell you. The overwhelming majority of those SUVs are not worth what they're asking. Some of them are outright bad investments, disguised as family vehicles. And a handful, just 5 to be precise, are actually worth every single dollar. We've gone through the full list you're looking at right now, from the Acura MDX and Acura RDX, all the way through the Toyota and Subaru lineups. And what we found might genuinely surprise you. Because a few vehicles that are being ignored by mainstream buyers right now are quietly some of the smartest purchases you can make in 2026. And one of the picks toward the end of this breakdown is going to be controversial. Some of you are going to push back hard in the comments, but we're going to show you exactly why it earned its spot. So stay with us, because the best decision you make this year might be the one you make right here. Let's start with the vehicle that keeps showing up near the top of odor satisfaction surveys, the one that luxury SUV buyers are quietly choosing over far more expensive German alternatives. Now, you might have expected us to kick things off with something more surprising, and we will get there. But the MDX deserves to be understood properly before it gets dismissed as just another Honda-based family hauler dressed up in a nice suit. Because that framing completely undersells what Acura has accomplished with this generation. The MDX, in its 2026 iteration, delivers real-world fuel economy that owners consistently report in the range of 20 to 23 miles per gallon combined in everyday driving, which is competitive for a 3-row SUV of this size, and genuinely better than a lot of its peers from European brands that cost significantly more. The powertrain is a 3.5-liter V6, producing around 290 horsepower. And what makes it feel right isn't just the number on the spec sheet, but the way that power is delivered. It's smooth, linear, and confidence-inspiring, whether you're merging onto the highway or navigating a tight urban parking structure. If you step up to the Type S variant, you're looking at a turbocharged 3.0-liter V6, putting out an approx 355 horsepower. And the difference in character is immediately obvious. The base engine is composed and refined. The Type S is genuinely exciting in a way that most 3-row SUVs simply are not. The SHAWD system on the MDX is one of the few all-wheel drive setups in this segment that actually does something interesting and meaningful. Most AWD systems in this class are reactive. They only send power to the rear axle when the front wheels start slipping, which means they're always playing catch-up. Acura's super handling all-wheel drive does the opposite. It proactively torque vectors power to the outside rear wheel during cornering, which tightens the handling response in a way that feels almost athletic for a vehicle this size. In snow and rain, it's exceptional. And for light winter driving or wet mountain roads, it's genuinely one of the best systems you can get without stepping into a full-size off-road platform. The second row is comfortable enough for adults on longer trips. And the third row, while typically snug on most 3-row SUVs, is better than average here. Cargo behind the third row is modest at around 16 cubic feet, which expands substantially when those seats fold. The interior design and material quality punches well above what you'd expect at this price point. The infotainment system, while it took Acura a few generations to get right, is now genuinely usable and pairs with a 12.3-inch display and a separate controller layout that divides opinion but works well once you've spent a week with it. Wireless Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto are standard. The driver assistance suite is comprehensive. Pricing starts at around $50,000 for a well-equipped base model and climbs from there. But here's the thing. When you stack the MDX against something like a BMW X5 or a Mercedes GLE, which we'll address shortly, the MDX holds its value better, costs less to maintain, has a stronger reliability record, and in many ownership scenarios, actually depreciates more slowly. The most common owner complaints center on the third row access being somewhat awkward for taller adults, and the base audio system not being quite as impressive as some rivals. Neither of those things is a deal breaker. The MDX is a legitimate best-in-class recommendation, and if you're shopping in the three-row segment with around $50,000 to $60,000, it should be on your shortlist. Now, here's where things get interesting, because the next vehicle is one that the mainstream automotive press has started to quietly acknowledge as one of the sleeper hits of the decade, and yet it still isn't getting the attention it deserves from buyers who are cross-shopping in the mid-size SUV segment. We're talking about the Kia Telluride, and more specifically, the 2026 Kia Telluride X2 trim. Before you close this video, because you've heard the Telluride praised before, understand that what we're talking about here isn't just a case of hype sustaining a good first impression. The Telluride has had several model years to either maintain its reputation or stumble, and what's happened instead is that it has quietly refined itself into something that makes a lot of significantly more expensive vehicles look difficult to justify. Fuel economy on the Telluride lands at around 21 to 23 miles per gallon combined for the front-wheel drive configuration, and roughly 20 to 22 with the AWD system active, which is exactly where you'd expect a vehicle of this size and mission to perform. The engine is a 3.8-liter V6, producing around 291 horsepower, and the character of that engine in daily use is important to understand. It doesn't have the turbocharged surge of something like the Hyundai Santa Fe, which uses a completely different philosophy. The Telluride's V6 is naturally aspirated, which means the power delivery is smooth, predictable, and consistent over long highway miles, without the slight hesitation you sometimes feel in turbocharged alternatives during partial throttle inputs. For family road trips and daily commutes, this is not a weakness. It's genuinely a selling point. The AWD system available on the Telluride is a competent on-demand setup that handles snow, light mud, and wet pavement confidently. It's not designed for serious off-road work, and it doesn't pretend to be. But for the vast majority of buyers who want all-weather capability without ever planning to go off a paved surface, it's more than adequate. What truly separates the Telluride from its competition at this price point is the interior space and material quality. The second row is genuinely one of the most comfortable spaces in any three-row SUV, regardless of price category. Legroom is exceptional. The seats are wide and well-cushioned, and sliding and reclining functionality makes the second row feel less like a compromise and more like the preferred place to sit. The third row is tight by adult standards, which is typical for this class, but perfectly usable for children on longer drives. Cargo capacity behind the third row is around 21 cubic feet, which is competitive. The infotainment system runs on a large 12.3-inch touchscreen and supports wireless smartphone integration as standard. The driver assistance features include lane centering, adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, and rear cross-traffic alert, all standard on higher trims. The build quality of the interior materials rivals or exceeds what you'd find in vehicles costing $10,000 to $15,000 more. And multiple independent reliability surveys have rated the Telluride as one of the more dependable options in this class. Starting price on the X2 trim lands in the high $40,000 range, and while that is not cheap, the value proposition per dollar spent is difficult to match. The most common owner complaints involve the fuel economy not quite meeting ETA estimates in real-world city driving, and occasional software lag in the infotainment system during cold weather startup. These are genuine minor frustrations, not structural problems. The Telluride X2 belongs on this list. And if you're cross-shopping it against the Subaru Outback, or the Nissan Rogue, or even the Honda Pilot, you need to do a side-by-side comparison in person before you sign anything. Speaking of the Subaru Outback, and this is where we start getting into territory that some of you are going to find controversial. The 2026 Subaru Forester Wilderness deserves a serious conversation. Not the base Forester, and not the standard Outback, but the Wilderness trim specifically, because it represents something that almost no other mainstream manufacturer is doing intelligently in 2026. Building a capable off-road variant that doesn't sacrifice everyday usability, doesn't balloon the price into territory that only enthusiasts can justify, and doesn't require a separate insurance policy for the anxiety of taking it somewhere with actual dirt under the wheels. The fuel economy on the Forester Wilderness is honest rather than impressive. You're looking at roughly 26 miles per gallon highway and about 22 in city and combined driving, which for a vehicle with genuine off-road hardware represents a reasonable trade-off. The engine is a 2.5-liter horizontally opposed four-cylinder, producing around 182 horsepower, and this is where you need to recalibrate your expectations before you dismiss it. This powertrain is not exciting. If you want excitement, you're in the wrong vehicle. What this engine and this drivetrain offer instead is extraordinary reliability, consistent performance across extreme temperature ranges, and a powertrain architecture that Subaru has been refining for decades. The flat-four layout lowers the center of gravity compared to a traditional inline engine, which contributes to handling balance. Paired with Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive, a full-time system, not an on-demand one, the Forester Wilderness is among the most capable light off-road vehicles you can buy without a body-on-frame platform. The ground clearance on the Wilderness trim is raised to approx 9.2 inches compared to the standard Forester. The approach and departure angles are improved, and the tires are specifically chosen for mixed surface capability. In snow, this vehicle is genuinely remarkable. It handles icy mountain roads with a composure that much more expensive crossovers cannot replicate. And that reputation is earned, not marketed. The interior is practical rather than luxurious. Second row space is good for adults on medium-length trips, and cargo capacity behind the rear seats is around 35 cubic feet, which is substantial for a vehicle in this size class. The EyeSight Driver Assistance Suite, which Subaru has been iterating on for years, is one of the more mature pre-collision systems in the mainstream market. It's not the flashiest, but it works consistently and reliably, which matters more than impressive demos. The infotainment runs on an 11.6-inch portrait touchscreen that has improved dramatically in responsiveness compared to earlier generations. Pricing for the Forester Wilderness comes in around the mid to high 30s, which in 2026 makes it one of the most affordable, genuinely capable all-weather SUVs you can buy. The trade-offs are real. The powertrain is unremarkable, in an era where turbocharged and hybrid competitors promise more drama. The infotainment system still trails segment leaders in visual polish, and the ride quality at highway speeds is noticeably firmer on the Wilderness trim due to the stiffer suspension tuning. But for buyers who spend time in the mountains, live in areas with serious winter weather, or simply want to know that their vehicle will handle whatever the roads throw at them without requiring specialist maintenance, the Forester Wilderness in 2026 is one of the best answers on the market. And here's what we want you to think about. There are buyers out there right now seriously considering a BMW X5 at $65,000 when the Forester Wilderness at $36,000 does more of what they actually need. That is the kind of decision this video is designed to help you avoid making. Now we're gonna shift gears, because the fourth vehicle on this list is one that has been polarizing for years, and in 2026, the argument in its favor has become harder to ignore. The Toyota RAV4 has been the best-selling SUV in America for multiple consecutive years, which would normally be a reason for us to dismiss it in a video like this. because vehicles that dominate by popularity often do so through marketing momentum rather than genuine superiority. But the Toyota RAV4 2026 in the X3 configuration is not on this list because it's popular. It's on this list because the data on it is almost impossible to argue with. Let's start with the hybrid version, because the standard gasoline RAV4, while perfectly competent, is not the version that makes this vehicle special. The RAV4 Hybrid delivers real-world fuel economy that consistently measures between 36 and 40 miles per gallon in combined driving for most owners. Numbers that were impossible in this class just a few years ago, and that still feel remarkable when you're watching the pump. The hybrid system pairs a 2.5-liter four-cylinder with electric motors to produce a combined output of approximately 219 horsepower. And importantly, the power delivery in the hybrid variant is actually more responsive than the standard gasoline version at low to mid speeds because electric motors provide instant torque. The all-wheel drive capability on the hybrid version is particularly interesting because it's achieved partly through a dedicated rear electric motor rather than a traditional mechanical center differential. This means there's no drive shaft connecting the front and rear axles. Each axle is driven independently, which gives Toyota substantial packaging flexibility and also means the AWD system can respond almost instantaneously to traction demands. In practice, this translates to confident wet weather performance and solid capability on light snow, without the mechanical complexity of traditional all-wheel drive systems. Second row space in the RAV4 is comfortable for adults, with generous legroom and headroom for a compact SUV. Cargo volume behind the rear seats is approximately 37 cubic feet, which is among the best in the compact segment. The technology package on upper trims includes a 10.5-inch infotainment display running Toyota's latest multimedia interface, which has been substantially improved from earlier versions, and now supports wireless CarPlay and Android Auto without the frustrating lag that affected earlier systems. Toyota Safety Sense 3.0 is standard across the lineup and includes pre-collision warning with automatic braking, lane departure alert, adaptive cruise control, and automatic high beams. Pricing for the RAV4 Hybrid starts around $33,000 and climbs to the mid-40s for fully loaded trims. And this is where the value equation becomes compelling. You are buying into one of the most thoroughly proven hybrid systems in the automotive industry, backed by Toyota's legendary long-term reliability record, with fuel savings that can offset a meaningful portion of the price premium over a gasoline competitor over a typical 5 to 7 year ownership period. Owner complaints tend to cluster around the cabin materials feeling slightly down market on lower trims, the infotainment system being less intuitive than some competitors, and the fact that the gasoline-only version, while reliable, has a somewhat agricultural engine note under hard acceleration. None of these are reasons to avoid the vehicle. The RAV4, particularly in its hybrid form, is one of the most complete packages in the compact SUV market in 2026. And the reliability data across hundreds of thousands of units speaks louder than any press review. Now here's the one that's going to generate comments. The fifth and final vehicle on this list is the one we debated the longest, and it's not the one most enthusiast publications would have chosen. We're recommending the Mazda CX-50, and specifically we want you to understand why it beats out a significant portion of the list you see in these screenshots, including vehicles from Nissan, Mitsubishi, and several Hyundai and Kia models that are getting enormous marketing attention in 2026. The CX-50 is Mazda's statement that a mainstream crossover does not have to be boring, does not have to feel like rental car furniture on wheels, and does not have to compromise on the driving experience in pursuit of fuel economy numbers designed for EPA stickers rather than real highways. Real-world fuel economy on the base 2.5-liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder version comes in at around 27 to 29 miles per gallon combined, which is respectable for a compact SUV with all-wheel drive standard. If you opt for the 2.5-liter turbocharged variant, That number drops modestly to around 24 to 26 combined. But you gain an engine that produces approximately 256 horsepower on premium fuel. A significant upgrade in character and capability that transforms the driving experience. The turbocharged CX-50 feels genuinely alive under acceleration in a way that almost nothing else in this class can claim, with a steering response and chassis balance that routinely earns comparisons to vehicles in a higher price and performance category. The all-wheel drive system on the CX-50 is a standard fitment, not an optional add-on, which is meaningful because it means Mazda engineered the vehicle around that configuration from the beginning rather than bolting it on afterward. It's a competent all-weather system that handles daily driving in rain and snow with confidence. Though like the RAV4 setup, it is not designed for serious off-roading. Interior quality in the CX-50 is where Mazda genuinely differentiates itself from competitors at similar price points. The materials used throughout the cabin feel several segments above what the badge might suggest to a casual observer. Soft touch surfaces are used consistently rather than selectively. The infotainment uses a rotary controller rather than a touchscreen as the primary input, a decision that sounds counterintuitive in 2026, but is actually more ergonomically sensible for in-motion use because it eliminates the need to reach across the cabin to touch a screen while driving. The 10.25-inch display responds to both the rotary input and touch when stationary, and wireless smartphone connectivity is standard. Second row space is comfortable for adults on most trips, though buyers coming from larger crossovers may find it slightly tighter than they expect. This is one genuine trade-off compared to the Telluride or RAV4. Cargo behind the rear seats is around 31 cubic feet, which is adequate but not segment-leading. The iActiveSense safety suite includes adaptive cruise, emergency braking, lane centering, and blind spot monitoring, all of which work smoothly and without the oversensitivity that frustrates owners of some competing systems. Pricing starts around $29,000 and reaches into the low to mid-40s for the turbocharged upper trims. And at that entry point, it represents some of the best value in the compact crossover segment. The most common owner feedback involves the infotainment learning curve for new users unfamiliar with the rotary controller, cargo volume that trails segment leaders, and the fact that the turbocharged engine requires premium fuel to hit peak output numbers. These are honest trade-offs for a vehicle that over-delivers on driving engagement, interior refinement, and long-term build quality by a meaningful margin compared to its direct competitors. The CX-50 is not for everyone. If maximum cargo space or towing capacity are your priorities, this is not your vehicle. But if you want something that makes every drive feel intentional rather than utilitarian, and you want it at a price that doesn't require you to compromise on quality to get there, the 2026 Mazda CX-50 deserves to be on your list. Now here's what we want you to think about as you sit with these 5 picks. The vehicles that didn't make this list aren't necessarily terrible. Some of them are competent, some have loyal followings, and some will be perfectly adequate transportation for specific buyers with specific needs. But the question we apply to every single vehicle on that full list is this. When you factor in real-world ownership costs, long-term reliability data, the actual driving experience on actual roads, and the honest value of what you're getting per dollar spent, does this vehicle justify what the dealership is asking? For a lot of vehicles in 2026, the answer is no. The BMW X5 is a beautiful machine with genuinely premium interior materials and an impressive feature set. But its maintenance costs, depreciation curve, and the premium you're paying for the badge over something like the MDX represent a financial argument that most buyers lose. Several of the Hyundai and Kia products on that list are genuinely good vehicles that miss this list not because they're failures, but because they don't quite reach the standard of the 5 that made it. And in a few cases, quality control improvements are still being demonstrated rather than proven across large owner populations. The Nissan entries, particularly the Rogue, offer competitive packaging at an attractive price, But Nissan's reliability narrative over the past decade gives us hesitation that the current models haven't fully resolved. The Subaru Crosstrek and Impreza are worth considering for specific buyers, but the Forester Wilderness is the Subaru that makes the most complete argument. The Lexus models, particularly the NX350h, came very close to this list and represent an alternative luxury recommendation for buyers who want the Toyota hybrid reliability story with premium cabin execution. If you're shopping in that range, the NX350h is worth a serious look, even though it narrowly missed R5. And the Toyota Corolla Cross is a fascinating value story that we want to revisit in a future breakdown because the 2026 version has made some genuinely interesting changes. So now we want to hear from you, because there are definitely people watching this right now who own one of the vehicles that didn't make this list, and some of you are convinced we got it wrong. The Hyundai Santa Fe has a passionate owner base. The Mazda CX-30 has fans who think it should have been here instead of the CX-50. And there's someone right now who's about to type a comment defending the BMW X5 cost of ownership. And honestly, we want to read it. But here's the question we really want you to answer. If you've owned any of the vehicles on that full list for more than 2 years, what has the real-world experience actually been? Because the data we have is good, but your ownership experience is the part that the spec sheets and the press drives can never fully capture. Drop it in the comments, and while you're there, tell us which of these 5 picks surprised you the most.